regular town board meeting. And we have a special presentation tonight. So if you would please pay attention.
Color guard, post colors. Two. Please uncover to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color. Color guard, color colors. Salute. Post dismiss.
But don't leave, okay?
Well, that was a nice treat.
Roll call. Councilwoman Esley.
Present.
Councilman Marasco.
Here.
Councilman Perticone.
Here.
Councilwoman Skrobach.
Here.
Supervisor DeRizio.
Here.
And attorney for the town.
Here.
And I would like to ask at this time the American Legion Post 134 to come back in, please. Where'd they go? Oh. Okay. As I said last month, I think it's important for us to recognize people who give of service throughout the year and not during certain times. And it is my great pleasure tonight to recognize the American Legion Post 134. I believe all of these veterans are retired, and therefore they give a great deal of volunteer service to our own town, to the county, and veterans throughout the region. They work diligently in fundraising, and I'm proud to say they sponsor our Memorial Day Parade. Very few towns are able to give the recognition for those who made the ultimate sacrifice. And it's wonderful that we in Irondequoit can give memory to those who have done that with the Memorial Day Parade. Our American Legion helps out the town with the beer garden for the 4th of July and Oktoberfest. It is one of their fundraisers, among other things. What is great about organizations, and I see I have Teresa tonight because Rotary is going to be working on a project, and I thank you and the Rotary for that, that organizations give back to the community in which they live and raise the funds. I am extremely proud of our American Legion Post in not only sponsoring the Memorial Day Parade, but such things as the new flagpole outside our public safety building, honor flight, the Veterans Hospital, various things in the Parks and Rec Department. And one of the big ones that we're really excited about that we initiated last year was the Spectacle of Lights. So the town wanted to present to you, Elmer Brown is the commander.
That's me.
Past commander is Peter Fantagrossi. Adjutant is Deutsch, Jerry Deutsch. And all of his minions that work so diligently, and this isn't even all of them. But I'd like to present to you from the town of Irondequoit this recognition award in appreciation for your volunteerism, your service, and your giving back to Arundequoit.
Well, thank you very much.
As past commander of Post 134, maybe you didn't know, but we're the top American Legion post in the country. 14,000 American Legion posts, thanks to Josie, our mother hen, who does our paperwork for us. She submitted all our paperwork to Congress, and we were voted the top American Legion post in the country for Americanism. And we're the tops in New York State also. So we just want you to know that. Thank you.
Wow, that's excellent. I did not want to embarrass them and say behind every great man is a woman, but it is definitely Josie Ann LaLoggia. She keeps a fastidious paperwork and accounting and is a mover and a shaker behind these guys. So thank you ever so much for everything you do for the town of Arundequoit.
That's right, great. And thank you for tonight,
One of the hottest topics in our town, and I often describe it as our albatross, is the Medley Center. So tonight, the board felt that we need to talk to you more directly about the project up on East Ridge Road. I have asked Councilman Perdicone to join me at this podium because he has been involved for a long time, as well as attending all of the meetings with me. Councilman Morosco has attended some. All of the board members have met at various times with the developer. But we wanted to give you a little bit of history and understanding because we find that through the media, so much is spun and most of it is not accurate. So we wanted to at least set the record straight for some things. So I made a few notes for us. That the pilot, which means a payment in lieu of taxes, was signed in 2009. And in that pilot were milestones. And those milestones are to show investment in the project at a certain point in time. This pilot payment is paid every January to the East Arundequoit School District, to the county, and the town of Arundequoit. This payment increases 5% every year, which is a good thing because obviously our residential taxpayers do not want to pay an increase of 5% each year. If the supplemental payment is to be paid, if a milestone is met, and all three taxing jurisdictions agree that the second milestone was not met, and therefore a supplemental payment must be made. There's quite a complex formula for which that payment is derived. And that payment would be due in January 2014 with the pilot payment. So in essence, he's not really in default of the pilot until that supplemental payment is made or not made. When I became supervisor in 2010, I studied the process, studied the project, and began, I don't want to say hounding, but requesting that 3 buildings be taken down. They are 3 vacant buildings. They have some code violations, and they're definitely an issue for public safety. Although he is current on his pilot payments, we believe he owes that supplemental payment in January. This pilot is a very complex document in which, on a number of occasions, and I apologize to the attorneys that I was a lowly English teacher and their attorneys, but I'm not always happy with the wording in that pilot agreement. What we need to understand is that Burson Properties LLC is a limited liability corporation, which means it's a pass-through, in which the owner of an LLC does not have much liability. In essence, you could just say it's a paper document that's only worth the paper that it is on. I am adamant about those buildings coming down. We have so much going on East Ridge Road that they are such an eyesore to our community. Last week, we opened the new McDonald's. The Marshalls Plaza and Mavis Tire are going to have new facades. Evidently, and Larry Heininger brought this to me today, the McDonald's over on the most western side of East Ridge Road is looking at doing something to their building. And with the Depot Plaza being demolished and a new facility there, and more businesses are going to be rebuilding or improving their sites. My feeling is with the reconstruction of East Ridge Road, those three buildings are definitely an eyesore to our town. I wanted to tell you that businesses are really interested in commerce in Arundecoit. They like the stable tax rate. They like the business-friendly opinion that they see. They like working with the planning department. We've received many letters about how we expedite the process, and they're really grateful that we are a business-friendly town. Since I became supervisor in 2010, I've heard so many residents say, why don't we have an Aldi's? Why don't we have an Aldi's? And companies are interested in location and a targeted market for their business. And I am proud to say that at last night's planning board workshop and in 2 weeks before the regular town or planning board workshop, the plans for the new Aldi's in Arundecoit is unfolding. I think this will be a nice complement to our mom and pop grocery stores as well as the chain stores. But I know there are going to be so many residents that are happy to see that Aldi's on Hudson Avenue. So John, I asked John to come up, so there were things that I may have forgotten because I had a rather busy day and I was trying to pinpoint all the salient points of what we have been facing with this project. Yes.
The only thing that I want to just reiterate a little bit on, we had that meeting on a week ago Friday. I believe that all the taxing jurisdiction are in agreement with the town that we will not move forward with, we won't move forward with anything with the project until we have the demolition of the three buildings on Ridge Road. And there are other hurdles that we're going to have to go after that, but I believe that everybody's on board and everybody's in agreement with that nobody's going to move on anything with the Medley until those three buildings are demolished. So, we'll see. We had that meeting. We thought that was going to be the start of the meeting. We were going to talk about the demolition of the buildings that never came about. We did not discuss at all casino. It was never brought up because this was the issue that was in the room. We didn't get past this issue, so that's where the meeting ended. And I believe, and I feel good that all the taxing jurisdictions are in agreement that nobody will move forward until we get the buildings demolished. So we will see. And one thing I will say, there was some movement over the summer because I got contacted by some companies that did do some walkthroughs there to do the demo and cleanup and everything, but nothing ever came about. As far as I'm concerned, as of today, there are no contracts to do any demolition up there on Ridge Road. So at least everybody's on board with this, and nothing will move forward until we get a little movement up there on the demolition.
And just as a sidebar, there just are not any other alternatives. There is a very hefty lien against the property, and that just cannot evaporate. And it's such that we do want to continue to work with him, because if we were to go into a lender liability case, it would just take years for that to be resolved. So we wanted you to know that we are working diligently on it. It's a hard project to understand, and the pilot, but right now, the 3 taxing jurisdictions cannot do anything with that pilot until we see what happens, and I'm still going to be adamant about demolishing those buildings and keeping at him. Today, the school district and myself sent him another letter telling him we are not going to negotiate at the table until those buildings are down. So we're hoping that that answers some of the questions and some of the things that get circulated that are inaccurate, and that you know there's not a lot that the town can do right now. We will try our best, but the 3 agencies do have to work together to try to resolve it.
Madam Supervisor, before you leave, maybe you could just explain, because so often people have great ideas about what could be done with that property.
Yeah, and I think it's important to realize, too, that what was there did not work, and that's why it closed. There was bad press, there were rumors, and there was a history behind why that mall was built and why it continued on the downfall. The thing is that what goes in there has to be different. It can't be like the other malls. It can't compete against the malls. And it was rezoned in 2009 to tourist, resort, and recreation. So even the zoning was changed to accommodate this project, which makes it a little bit more difficult for us right now to pursue other things because of the zoning on it, and that it does need to be mixed use of residential, professional offices, perhaps the theater. And when I refer to theater, I refer to live theater. So, yeah, it has grown. It's mushroomed.
And that's another thing, too, that we talked about a little bit is, it is not the same project today as it was in 2009. So that's a concern for everybody as well, too, that there's things we have to change and look at, because the project, was probably 4 to 5 times larger than the initial project was in 2009 up to this date here. So there are things that we're going to have to take into consideration before, again, we move forward. Exactly what's the project that we're going to be dealing with moving on and going forward on it.
And it is frustrating, too, when we see how successful the Walden Galleria is over in Buffalo. There's not a vacancy in it. The tenancy is almost filled at the Carousel and Destiny USA. So it is frustrating for us to see that going to the east and the west of us. But we do have to be patient and understand that when the financing was pulled from him for this project, he does have that lender liability, and we have to try to work through the scenario.
Yeah, also, just to reiterate that although he does have a public pilot, he is getting aid from taxpayers, it is a private entity, and we have no authority over what he really does there. We can't tell him, this resident has we can tell him this resident or that resident has a great idea about what you want to do, but it's privately owned, and ultimately we have no authority of what he does there.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add something? Okay, thank you, John. Last Friday night, unfortunately, we had an incident up on East Ridge Road, and these things mar the image of the town. So I asked the Deputy Chief, Rich Tantillo, if he would come up here with me tonight to alleviate some of the concerns that our residents may have and the proactive role that we have been taking with that scenario.
Good evening. On Monday morning, the chief immediately convened a meeting, and we first evaluated what took place Friday evening concerning the incident at the Regal Theater. Once the evaluation was completed, and that will continue, obviously, we went into what we would consider a proactive mode so that we can prevent further incidents from occurring. At the direction of the chief, the corporate offices of the Regal Theater were contacted, and we spoke with the director of security. concerning the incident that took place, the concerns that we have, and how we can improve upon what unfortunately took place. With that said, he went back to his people, the Director of Security, spoke with their Operations Division, and a future plan is currently being developed and will be put into place within the next 48 hours. In addition to speaking to the Director of Security, we spoke with the District Manager who covers Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse for the Regal Theaters. He was also advised of what our concerns were, what the developments were that took place, and some of the early warning signs and signals that need to be developed and implemented so that we can prevent another incident from occurring. Both the Director of Security for the corporation, as well as the District Manager for our theater in these 3 cities, was very receptive to the ideas, concepts that we put forward. In addition, Lieutenant DiGiovanni has been tasked with working directly with the on-site general manager for the Regal Cinema at Culver Ridge Plaza. That individual is obviously in communication with his supervisors in regards to what the plan is. Without getting into specifics, because we don't necessarily like to divulge that information, but I can attest to the fact that the security measures will be very different inside the facility. The early warning system will be put into place so that as ticket sales start to rise, a manager will be notified and additional theaters will be utilized so that we don't end up with, I'm not going to say an overcrowded situation, but maybe a potentially unsafe situation. In addition to that, managers will be communicating with us on a regular basis so that every Thursday, the on-duty watch commander and the manager of the theater will be communicating face-to-face so that we would be adequately prepared to deal with the situation. As unfortunate as it is, I think your opinions really matter. And one of the things that we've been doing, obviously, is returning every phone call we can or email that we get from every resident to explain what took place. Some of the residents questioned the arrest policy that took place or maybe the transportation policy. And I've been able to explain some of the things that we contend with, especially in dealing with adolescents. I also encourage people to communicate email to the Regal Theater Corporation. Let your opinion be heard. Let them know how you feel about this, how it's impacted you, how it's impacted your community. I come to you tonight as a police officer, but I also am a parent, and my kids like to go to the movies, so they heard from me today. So if you have the opportunity to visit their website, I would encourage you to do so. 2 means of communication. One to the Deputy Chief of Police by calling me at 336-6005. I'll repeat it, 336-6005. And I'll do my best to respond to that call in a timely fashion. The Regal Theater website, where you can offer your opinion, www.regmovies.com. And I'll repeat that, www.regmovies.com. If there's any silver lining to this, I certainly would like to commend the men and women of the Irondequoit Police Department and all of the officers that responded, because considering what took place, nobody was hurt. And although we don't like to think that it's a good thing overall as far as what took place, but there were no injuries. And I commend the officers for their response, which included, as you know, other agencies. So with that, and I know you have a busy meeting tonight, please reach out to myself, to the police department. You know that your chief of police for 50 years has certainly served this community well, and he is very passionate about community policing. That's why we do what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, DC. And I think it's important that you contact IPD or myself to get the facts on situations like this. We have to remember that the police department can only be on the public property, which is the parking lots and the sidewalks. You know, there are special laws that apply to going into the building, so we're working very carefully with the security to make sure that it is a safe place for everyone. Of course, I'm not happy with movies like this, and I'm not happy when parents shirk their responsibilities and leave parenting up to the community or the street. streets to supervise. So I'm saying to our parents in our town, no matter the age of your child, they still require supervision. Adolescents are going through maturation that is difficult for them, and they do not understand the choices they always make. And it's better to be a tough love parent and be there than to have to face the consequences afterward. There are many other opportunities when adolescents can be given the opportunity to show their freedom. But in movies such as this, they do need parental guidance. So thank you on that note.
I'm just going to add while you go to the podium, I remember when my children used to say to me, "But Mom, I'm the only one." And I would have to say, "Well, then you're the only one." It has to be supervised.
I know I seem to have a lot to say tonight, but we've been really busy, and I apologize to those emails and phone calls I haven't been able to return. This time of the year is really busy because we are pulling together the budget. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about that tonight. We have completed the 2014 budget and are now finally verifying those figures to make sure they are accurate. This process is a long one in which department heads are required to use zero-based budgeting by starting from scratch and justifying each and every expense. The 2014 budget will be given to the town board on Friday, so welcome that little gift, and budget workshops are scheduled for October 8th, 9th, and 10th. The budget hearing is November 7th. Again, we have maintained for the 5th year in a row the same tax rate of $6.51 per 1,000 of assessed value. So your town tax bill will be the same as it was in 2013. The tax rate for the consolidated sewer district and the stormwater drain district are also the same as 2013. In this budget, we are purchasing police cars, equipment for DPW and parks, replacing outdated computers, and budgeting for contingencies. We are maintaining the same number of employees. The town's constitutional debt limit remains at 10% of the limit. No fund balances have been allocated except in the library. I take budgeting very seriously as one of my responsibilities to monitor cash flows and strengthen assets to liabilities. It is critical to our town's financial health to maintain a stable tax for its residents and businesses, for credit rating agencies, and the ensuing bonding rates in providing the necessary governmental functions. Please review the 2012 audit on the website to understand the financial health of Irondequoit. These go hand in hand. The unassigned general fund balance at the end of 2009 was $296,000, and we have built the total general fund balance to $4.745 million at the end of 2012. The stormwater drainage fund was a negative $200,000 in 2009 and is now a positive $861,537. Reserve funds provide a legal mechanism for saving money to finance all or part of future infrastructure, equipment, and buildings. These funds provide financial stability by reducing reliance on debt to finance projects and acquisitions. I shall explain some of these examples later in the meeting. Residents who receive the Basic Star on their school taxes have received letters from Albany. Due to fraud, the state is requesting Basic Star holders to renew their exemption, which must be done by December 31st, 2013. You must follow the instructions in the letter, as you must renew online or call the phone number. On this letter, you were given a code to use. You must follow those directions and use this code to secure your personal information, including Social Security numbers. We can't do it for you in Town Hall. You must do it from your phone or online for security reasons. Again, I wish to reiterate that I received complaints from residents about speeding cars. School is in session. Children play around the sidewalks. Bicyclists enjoy healthy activities, so please slow down. This Saturday, September 21st, is our DPW open house from 10:30 a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. Come enjoy a hot dog and view the equipment used for paving, plowing, sewers, and tree trimming. This weekend is the continuation of Oktoberfest at Camp Eastman. Come enjoy good food, good music, and an overall good time. Prost. Please remember to keep grass mowed within 6 inches and do not park on the grass. Code compliance is important to the quality of life in our neighborhoods. Report issues to the Code Enforcement Department. Then the code officer will visit the site, take photos, and send a letter to the violator. We allow 10 days for compliance before commencing action. Visit the building department for permits for almost everything. And on a final note, negative words and negative actions hurt the image of our town, as well as leads to an unhealthy disposition. Do not let negativity rent space in your head. Now for the public input, and then I can be quiet. Stephanie Squiccerini.
Good evening, Stephanie Squiccerini, 3360 Culver Road. What a difference 5 months can make. 5 months ago, our town was celebrating together progress toward a goal over 2 decades in the making, progress toward improving our library, progress toward working together instead of letting differences on how to proceed divide us. It seemed as if we had the answer we all sought, with an overwhelming majority of residents speaking loud and clear for a new, more efficient, improved, centralized library with expanded services. But today, progress is delayed, with extra costs growing, grant opportunities lost, and the possibility of another vote should one be forced by someone claiming to have volunteers lined up to help them get the petition signatures required. As frustrated as I am by the recent delays, I am proud as I stand before you tonight. I am proud because I know our community wants this project to move forward, no matter how many votes it takes. I am proud because I know that for every person Mr. Barone has trying to collect signatures on a petition to force a revote, we'll have dozens of supporters helping to stop the spread of misleading information. I am proud to know that for every person, all 7 of them, who joined in an anti-library lawsuit, there are hundreds and hundreds of residents who believe in the library proposal. I am proud because I know for every person hiding behind anonymous robocalls and negative attack ads, there are thousands of residents who stood up and voted yes for the library. Now I can already hear Mr. Barone saying, is she proud that the town didn't follow proper procedure as he is claiming in his lawsuit? Well, Mr. Barone, I'm proud this town has not and will not give up. On April 23rd, nearly a 2-to-1 margin, Irondequoit voters made a loud and clear statement, build this library now and together. Since then, a lot has happened, but nothing has changed. Nothing from the recently conducted full seeker changed from the information provided in the initial review that was conducted prior to the vote. Residents have the same information now as they did on April 23rd. There is no need to undermine the democratic process and the will of the voters, since nothing has changed. There is a way to avoid added costs of a second special election. Instead of trying to vote again, let's try progress again. Let the will of the people move forward. Let us come together and do what the vast majority of residents told us they want us to do, build a new centralized library. Thank you. Thank you.
Richard Barone.
Richard Barone, 154 Hallwood Drive. U.S. Supreme Court Judge Sandra Day O'Connor stated recently, democracy is not a spectator sport. And so I'm involved, and other people are involved. And sometimes the truth is uncomfortable and negative, but the truth still needs to be told. The second vote tonight that you will be voting on is an admission that the first vote was illegal. If the first vote was illegal, that means the public vote was also illegal. There is no legally authorized vote by the public on this library. at this moment in time. If you were so confident you were okay, why didn't you go to court and defend it? You have not. The public deserves an apology, but nobody on this board has got the humility or the shame to apologize. How can you sit there and not apologize for bringing people out on an illegal vote? And again, I referenced this before. It's in here. You don't need an attorney to tell you early in the planning stages you must do seeker. It's in here in a short paragraph. You didn't even read it. You don't come here prepared, most of you, except for the supervisor, perhaps. So the people deserve another vote. Why? Because the vote in April was null and void. The attorneys will tell you that. That's the relief requested to the court. And that's what's going to happen when you vote tonight. Because the vote in February underpins the vote in April. The vote in February goes away, the April vote goes away. So apologize if you got the courage. Own up to your response. Why are you laughing, Councilwoman Esley? Is it a laughing matter to apologize for something wrong that you did? Don't blame the attorneys. I don't find this funny at all. This was not a technicality. It was not an honest mistake. There were 10 violations. Read the memorandum of law. It identifies in concrete terms how you violated the law. We told you to look into it. You didn't. You relied upon your consultant, the attorneys. Well, they've been wrong 3 times so far. Federal court, state Supreme Court, in this case. When are you going to do your homework? I don't expect you will, because there's only one choice on the agenda tonight, and that is not to give the people the right to vote. And we'll let the people decide, house to house perhaps. Thank you.
Al Reichert.
My name is Alvin Reichert. I'm a 48-year resident of the town of Arundecoit at 192 Rogers Parkway. 2 children, graduates of West Arundecoit High School, and went on to very fine universities and graduate schools, and we are very pleased to be residents of the town. I speak in support of a vote for the library to take place on November 5th. The expensive mistakes made by the engineers, primarily, the board and council, perhaps, are in the past. My own view is that of the same as is expressed in the language of, they put erasers on the ends of pencils because we make mistakes. Mistakes were made, they were expensive. That doesn't mean they have to be continued. My hope is that we would have a vote of 3 people for this library approval, for a vote on November 5th. More than 3 makes it go to a permissive referendum. If that's the choice of the board, so be it. I think it would be a mistake, not one that's morally oppressive or anything like that, just a mistaken judgment. If we have to go to a permissive referendum, I'm pretty confident that now that it's been much more publicity on this matter, that there'll be an active participation by the people in gaining signatures on petition. I don't mention that as a threat, but merely an observation. To me, what we're interested in is getting all the people involved in this. We had a vote of some, 6,000 to 4,000 or 8,000 to 4,000. I don't even know if it was that high, but it was a 2-to-1 vote. But I don't think the public understood what was involved to the degree that they do now. I don't want to see, from a personal standpoint, as a citizen of the town, I don't want to see this being an issue in the November 5th election. I want this to be simply one where everybody agrees there should be a vote. President Lincoln talked of government of the people, by the people, and for the people. He wasn't talking just of the people in the North. He was talking of a United States of America, went through a civil war to preserve the Union, for voting by all the people, for all the people. And I think that's what we should have here. I'm hopeful that your engineers have smartened up a little and are doing a thorough job on this parking business and the visual impact business. I'm not optimistic, but I'm hoping that they will have put together something that will pass muster, because we must not repeat that mistake. It was very expensive,
Okay, thank you very much.
and I thank you.
As I recall, though, there were a lot of people who couldn't vote during Lincoln's Day. Some of them are sitting up here. Teresa Bastuk.
Good evening, Madam Supervisor and Town Board members. My name is Therese Corrigan-Bastick, 125 Eastman Estates, and I'd like to talk about a policy concerning applications for rezoning. For over 10 years, there were unnecessary concerns and conflicts between the town and residents over the issue of rezoning of a commercial property in a residential neighborhood on Titus and Willow Creek, otherwise known as the Legacy Apartments. As a result of dealing with this issue twice in 10 years, because the previous town board had voted it down in 2003, and then the current board, or some of the members had accepted the application again for this entity, several residents assembled a draft policy based on procedures followed by other towns. 50 eager residents, referred to as a citizens committee, signed a petition asking the board to accept a policy for dealing with rezoning applications. The policy and petition were provided to the town board, as well as the zoning, planning, and conservation boards. The purpose and intent of the policy is to basically maintain harmony with the neighborhoods, avoid controversy, among stakeholders, and emphasize and maintain and consider the characteristic of the neighborhoods. A zoning law is the community's guide to the future development. The protections afforded residents and property owners, within the community from undesirable development come from the restrictiveness of zoning. There is no right to have an application to rezone accepted or acted upon. Zoning laws are in place to protect residents, neighborhoods, and communities. Officials are here to protect residents and their assets. This policy is merely a decision-making process that does not determine outcome and is fair to all involved. Officials must understand the proposed policy affords great protection to officials who come under pressure. The policy also allows officials to perform duties in an independent, open, and honest process. The more open and transparent, inclusive, and thoughtful the process becomes, the greater the chance the community support as issues become carefully resolved and alternatives examined. It is difficult, I knew I should have drank water before I started. It's difficult to imagine any official rejecting a process that creates the greatest potential for public support. The usual political response is, we'll take this under consideration and study it for years is unacceptable. What has happened twice to the residents should not happen again. We expect you to make this your policy and agree to work positively and fully include all residents at the earliest possible time in the decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Terry Carter, please. You want to write now?
Terry Carter, 99 Oak Ridge Drive, resident of the town since 1980. First, if a 2-to-1 majority is not of the people, by the people, and for the people, I really don't know what is. R7 rezoning and the November elections. In November, we have another election. What happened to every 4 years? This election is going to be very important to our town. Let us talk first about the basics. This would be an opportune time for everyone to remember that the real authority is back there, the residents of Arundequoit, the voters. Through the election process, we temporarily delegate our authority to you because it should be easier for 5 people to make decisions than thousands. That assumes, of course, that the 5 make the decisions that the thousands need and want. And although we follow protocols, Madam Supervisor, Mr. Perdicone, Mrs. Scroback, the real authority is back there. Please remember that. As I've stated before, and as we keep hearing reinforced, at the town level we are much stronger financially than we were when this board was elected. The board, and in particular Madam Supervisor, deserves a lot of credit for that. There is, however, one issue that has divided the town, and the previous speaker touched on this. Not divided the residents, but has divided the board from the residents, and that is the R7 rezoning application for the hill on Titus Avenue. By withdrawing the application, the legacy developers had the option of resubmitting after this year's election. Some residents are concerned that the developers are waiting to see if the election gives them more support on the board, more votes in favor of the R7 rezoning. We need to take away that uncertainty. It is, I believe, a requirement for all candidates running for supervisor or town board and for all incumbents not running this year to publicly and clearly state before the election whether they would vote for the R7 rezoning on Titus Avenue should it be resubmitted. If an R7 application for the larger parcel on the other side of Titus is submitted, we need to know who will approve and who will not. Yes or no is what we need to hear. Well, it depends on the details is not really the answer. The assumption there must be that the vote would be in favor of a multi-story apartment building on the hill on Titus Avenue or elsewhere. As the previous speaker mentioned, we also need a new process or policy for accepting applications, and we need to make updates to the master plan and zoning ordinances that will allow us to raise the maximum tax revenue without desecrating any neighborhoods. Ordinance is a military term, by the way. It's getting the right bullets and the right rifles so you can shoot them, and the right artillery shells and the right artillery that fit. It's all about fit. And it's the same with zoning ordinances. We just need to make everything we do fit the different areas of the town. We look forward to hearing from the candidates and incumbents. Thank you for your time and
Thank you,
attention.
Terry. Do you want to talk now?
I do. I've never participated in public input, but I want to tonight.
Do you want to sign up?
Should I sign up? The great thing about freedom of speech is that those you criticize get a chance to respond and exercise their own freedom of speech, which I'd like to do now. Having listened to hundreds of speakers over the years, I have some observations and suggestions for all who speak at public meetings, including myself. We have the opportunity to address the town and this board in this forum. You have the right to disagree and express your opinions, which many do tactfully and with respect and with dignity. But I believe we also have responsibilities when speaking to others. I believe that in our actions and in our conduct and in our words, we have the responsibility to be courteous and respectful to all. To be a lady or a gentleman in your conduct is taught to our children, and the lesson of civility shouldn't be lost on adults. So when exercising our rights, we must exercise our responsibilities as well. Rudeness is not a right. Rudeness is the weak person's imitation of strength. So you can stand up for something without having to stand on somebody. Thank you.
Very well said. Oh, I couldn't have said that better myself. Okay, that concludes the public input, and it's time for the financial report.
The financial results for the town as of August 31st, 2013. Total expenditures and encumbrances are $19,081,000, 60.9% of budget, below the 66.7% of the year that has elapsed. Actual expenditures are $17,784,000, and the remaining $1,298,000 represents encumbered expenses. The general fund expenses are $10,767,000, which is below the percent of the year that has elapsed at 59.3%. Of the total, $10,767,000, $10.1 million represents the actual year-to-date spending. Collectively, the expenses in the highway fund are $4,199,000, 75.3% of budget, and above the percent of the year that has elapsed. Total highway is higher than budget due to necessary encumbrances for gas, fuel, and asphalt in Highway 1. debt service and equipment parts in Highway 3, and salt in Highway 4. The expenditures in the library are 60% of budget, $1,118,000. Sewer has expended 52.3% of budget, a total of $2,045,000. Stormwater drainage expenses are $246,000, which equates to 31.5% of budget. The general fund has received $13,321,000, or 73.8% of its revenue budget. $10.3 million is tax revenue, and $225,000 is payment in lieu of taxes. Year-to-date, the town has received sales tax revenue for the first 2 quarters of the year, which in the case of sales tax for the first 2 quarters is actually 5 months. The mortgage tax revenue shown on the report represents 3 months of activity. Recreation fees are above budget at 70.8%. Contained within the other sources of revenue category that's listed on the report is $180,000 of property maintenance and cleanup revenue. The town has already exceeded the $170,000 budget for that particular effort. In summary, for the entire town, after 18 months, $25.7 million, 82.8% of the total revenue budget has been received. As you know, approximately $16.3 million of the total revenue is real estate tax. The library has received $1.8 million of its revenue, 96.8%. $5.3 million of revenue is in for the highway. That accounts for 95.7% of that budget. And the sewer fund has received $3.8 million, 99.8% of budgeted revenue for that fund. And this concludes my financial report for the month of August.
Thank you. All of those expenses are still under where they were in 2012, so we are staying right along that line that we try to follow. And it's important to note that our next check for sales tax will be about $900,000 in November. My figures are always more conservative than what are portrayed with our comptroller. She knows I try to keep those more conservative. And December, we'll be getting the mortgage tax check for about $350, because those calendars are not the same as ours. So we are anticipating that, and with the franchise in October, and I think our state aid probably comes in September too, doesn't it? So we are in really good shape.
Indeed.
Approval of minutes, August 14th, 2013, the workshop meeting.
May I have a motion to accept as presented?
Yes, ma'am, so moved.
Thank you. Did anyone find any additions, corrections, anything to add? Hearing none, let us vote to accept as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
The August 20th, 2013 special town board meeting.
Motion, please?
Moved.
And a second, please. And did anyone find anything to add to it?
Be hard pressed to find something to add to that.
No, one pager. Hearing none, let us vote to accept as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
The August 20th, 2013 regular town board meeting.
Motion to accept as
Moved.
presented. Second, please. Thank you. Any additions, corrections, changes?
No, I didn't have any.
I didn't see anything either, because our town clerk is so fastidious and accurate. Hearing none, let us vote to accept. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Items for board action, 9A, 2013-1, authorizing 2013 tax levies.
Motion, please. I'll move it.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Larry, would you like to read this, please?
Sure.
Whereas the town of Arundecoit served notice upon the owners of the properties listed in the attached spreadsheet for violations of the town code, and whereas the owners failed to comply with the duly issued order within the time provided, or where, in the case of abandoned properties, the owners were unavailable, and whereas if a property owner fails to correct a violation, then the town code authorizes the town to have work performed and be reimbursed by assessing and levying the expenses for such work against the property, and this is typically grass mowing and trash pickup. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Arundecoit authorizes and orders that the expenses for work performed by the town to correct town code violations as set forth in the attached spreadsheet and totaling approximately $295,311.61, and I was told today that it's over 300,000 as of today.
315,000.
315, yep. Be assessed and levied against said properties as listed in the spreadsheet and collected in the same manner and same time as other assessments and tax levies of the town. And be it further resolved that the town supervisor is hereby authorized to adjust the foregoing assessment and levy based on additional expenses incurred by the town, as well as fees that are paid to the town, because some people are paying their bills, prior to the cutoff date of September 30th, 2013. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
I wanted to add some things because I spend a great deal of my time each day dealing with code violations because residents seem to email me or call me about them. And I want people to know that you can call those in anonymously. You can report those on the website or come in to the Community Development Department for tall grass, unregistered vehicles, cars parked on lawns, accumulated junk, and exteriors of houses in disrepair, just to name some of the problems. As one can see from this resolution, that the Code Enforcement Department is busy citing these issues for compliance. For most residents, their homes represent a significant investment, and value is determined by not only the quality of the individual home, but also the quality of the neighborhood. Since we are so densely populated on smaller parcels, which are quite different from most suburbs, code violations are more noticeable. Since most violations are reported to Town Hall anonymously or not reported at all, we are initiating a Pride in Arundecoit campaign for the autumn. Code enforcement officers will be driving neighborhoods, photographing and reporting the violations. Letters will be sent allowing the homeowner about 10 days to comply before the fines and administrative fees are applied. This resolution allows me to adjust the assessment and levy for expenses incurred or paid by September 30th. So we already know that this amount is more than what's in the resolution. Fines and fees not paid by September 30th will be added to the January 24 tax bill. Of course, fees and administrative fees will gladly still take at Town Hall after that date. We take pride in our unique neighborhoods, which add to the special quality of life in Arundecoit. Please respect oneself and one's neighborhood by complying with codes for well-kept properties. I can't stress it enough that our Code Enforcement Department is so busy trying to deal with these violations. And it would help if neighbors could talk to neighbors in a civil manner and make some suggestions of what is appropriate and not appropriate. But I know it can lead to neighbor disputes. But we can't stress enough that we are strong in code compliance and that we are tackling as many of them as we possibly can.
I would just add barking dogs to that, Madam Supervisors. If you have a barking dog that's barking constantly, I can guarantee you it's upsetting your neighbors. There's hardly a day that goes by where I don't get that complaint too.
We have to be good neighbors.
We're so densely populated.
Any discussion on that amount or the resolution? Hearing none, let us vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 9A 2013-2, authorizing the annual audit of the town courts.
Motion, please? I'll move it. A second, please? Second. Thank you. Okay. And
Whereas the town of Arundecoit, as a recipient of annual grant funding from the U.S. government in excess of $500,000, is required to have an annual audit by a certified public accountant, CPA, and whereas the annual audit which is performed by the CPA includes an audit of the town courts and the production of a separate document summarizing the audit of the courts. And whereas the New York State Office of Court Administration requires a resolution by the town board to authorize the audit of the courts. And whereas the annual audit for 2012 was authorized by Resolution 2008-208 in an agreement with the firm of Freed, Maxick, and Battaglia, P.C., for annual audit services for fiscal years 2008 through 2013. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Arundecoit affirms that the annual audit performed by the CPA includes an audit of the town court and the production of a separate document summarizing the audit of the town court, a copy of which shall be filed with the New York State Office of Court Administration. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption.
Thank you. Any discussion? Very routine. Hearing none, let us vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 9A, 2013-3, authorizing the capital improvement program for the town of Arundecoit.
So moved. Thank you. Second, please.
Second.
Thank you.
Probably should let you finish the dates, huh, Barbara? 2014 through 2019. I'm so excited to let you talk about it.
Whereas it is necessary for the town to establish a multi-year plan for the implementation of capital improvements, and whereas a plan including projects to be implemented during the 6 years from 2014 through 2019 has been presented to the town board and is attached to this resolution. And whereas the document is a plan, is subject to change at any time, and does not provide financing of any project. Whereas financing for each project is required to be authorized by the town board in separate resolutions through either borrowing, appropriations in the annual operating budget, grant funding, or other specific sources. So please note that the resolution indicates a number of possible avenues for funding capital projects. Whereas the New York Department of Environmental Conservation, NYSDEC, has designated at 6 NYCRR subsection 617.5C various Type 2 actions which it has determined will not have a significant impact on the environment and therefore are not subject to review pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQR. Whereas such Type 2 actions include maintenance or repair of existing facilities or structures, 6 NYCRR subsection 617.5C1, replacement, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of a structure for facility in kind on the same site, 6 NYCRR 617.5C2, street openings or right-of-way openings for the purpose of repair or maintenance of existing utility facilities, 6 NYCRR subsection 617.5C5, construction or extension of primary or accessory non-residential facility involving less than 4,000 square feet of gross floor area, 6 NYCRR subsection 617.5C7, extension of utility distribution facilities to render service in approved subdivisions, 6 NYCRR subsection 617.5C11, or preliminary planning and budget processes necessary to formulate a proposal for action, provided these activities do not commit an agency to commence, engage in, or approve such action, 6 NYCRR subsection 617.5 C21, and whereas all of the components of the capital improvement plan are therefore type 2 actions. Now therefore be it resolved that the capital improvement capital improvement program for 2014 through 2019 is approved by the town board. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption. Wow.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, what we've done is, you know, the capital improvement plan by itself is really kind of a preliminary planning and budget document. The town board would go forward as each component goes through, but one thing we've done working with Public Works is identify those provisions that won't require any more seeker. Basically, anything that involves repair, rehabilitation of existing facilities. Once the town board makes that final decision to go forward and do it, you can do it. If there's new construction of new larger facilities, there may be another review required. But since you're not committing yourself to doing those things at this time, but just kind of planning out a multi-year budget, those can also be treated as type 2 at this time.
You have the CIP document in front of you. After the introduction is a summary of the proposed projects for 2014 through 2019, with 2014 as the active year. So for 2014, there's only one proposed project. We discussed this at the workshop, and that's the replacement of sewer laterals and mains at an estimated cost of $500,000. And the project will not be financed through borrowing and therefore will cause no debt service expense. The proposal is to transfer the necessary funds from the sewer fund balance, where funds are available to cover the transfer. And notations as to the method of financing, i.e. fund balance transfer, are included in the CIP document on the summary pages and on the individual 2014 project page. So if this CIP is authorized, I will offer a resolution at a future board meeting to request the appropriate sewer fund balance transfer. As a bond resolution is not necessary, the projects that are listed in the out years 2015 to 2019 will come before you again in next year's CIP and beyond. Ed, thank you, reviewed the CIP document and updated the introduction page as well as each individual project page with the appropriate and relevant environmental review comments. And as you know, if you have questions about any of the projects, you would want to address those with Patrick or Peter, or Peter.
And I'd just like to reiterate that the capital improvement program, or we refer to it as the CIP, is a 6-year internal working document. It's part of our town's business plan of projects to consider in the future, and it does not take in consideration the actual financing of those, and we do not analyze that until it's the time of that project. And due to our structurally balanced budgets, we have been building those fund balances, and I had mentioned earlier in our meeting that this has allowed us to do some projects without further financing. And 2 of those projects are the new roofs on the DPW building, as well as the $500,000 for sewer laterals and mains that were to be in the 2014 CIP. Therefore, because we can do that transfer, we will not need to bond that amount. And usually what happens too is, for example, if we were going to bond in 2014, it would appear on the budget for 2015. So there is no new debt issuance that will occur in 2015 from our 2014 CIP plan. So we will continue to track these capital projects and use the bonding mechanism for much larger projects and continue to do those that can be managed through fund balances and operating expenses.
It's fabulous. That's really great.
Thank you.
And Annie, thank you for the double-sided copy.
Thank you, Barb.
You're welcome. Okay, does anyone have anything to add? All right, hearing none, let us vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 9A, 2013-4, authorizing the promotion to motor equipment operator in the Fiscal Services Department of the town.
Move.
Thank you. Second, please. Thank you. Okay, Beth.
Whereas there exists a vacancy in the Physical Services Sewer Department for a motor equipment operator, and whereas this position is represented by the CSEA and was posted per contract guidelines, and whereas the Commissioner of Public Works has reviewed the qualifications of Jerry Martello and finds that he is the best qualified to fill the position of motor equipment operator, and whereas the Commissioner of Public Works wishes to promote Jerry Martello to the full-time position of motor equipment operator at $22.73 per hour per the blue collar union contract. Budget account 031-8120-0100-1100. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board appoints Jerry Martello to the position of motor equipment operator within the town of Arundecoit effective on the date of appointment.
Thank you. Any discussion by anyone? All right, hearing none, let us vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Did Jerry want to stand and be recognized? And I really appreciate when staff members come to the board meeting because, you know, there's so much competition for these promotions and it's an arduous task, and so we appreciate when you are willing to come and be recognized by our residents.
I would like to add a couple words here if I could.
You may,
Here in the
yes,
back row.
you may.
I just wanted to note that Jerry has worked for the town for 10-plus years, and he is an employee with good standing. He has an excellent attendance record with no abuse of his sick time. His overtime response is above average, and he works well with the town residents, which is going to be important because he is being promoted to the nighttime sewer shift, and we'll be dealing with residents who call in with sewer backups, and we'll be dealing face-to-face with them almost on a daily basis.
We've all been there.
He is experienced in all the equipment that is required of this position, so he's well-suited for it.
Patrick, when I talked to you earlier about it, because I had to miss the workshop the month, so I caught up when I got home. One of my favorite things you said about him was that he sets a good example. That says
Yes.
a lot about a person's character.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9A, 2013-5, authorizing the purchase of 29 patrol rifles and accessories.
I'll move it.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, Chief.
Okay, I'll read the resolution first, and then I'll give you some backup information. Whereas the police department deems it necessary to purchase 29 patrol rifles and associated accessories, and whereas the lowest responsible state bid, including some trade-ins, is $43,750 by Amchar Wholesale Incorporated, 100 Air Park Drive, Rochester, New York. Whereas the funds from the police asset forfeiture account 253-3120-2155 will be used to purchase said rifles and accessories. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board approves the purchase of the 29 patrol rifles and associated accessories from Amchar Company under state bid PC 3285. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption. The reason why I'm asking this and at this time is that on December 24th, Arundecoit units were the first responding officers to the Webster scene. When we arrived there and during the event, we realized that we were outgunned and we were unable to return sufficient fire power to protect the first responders and other citizens that were involved. Due to the fact that also that the suspect had a high-powered rifle, and that's what he was using to shoot at the people. Fortunately, the Webster police officer on scene did have a rifle and was able to return fire. At that time, I felt that I made a promise to myself that I would do everything possible to get patrol rifles in all our cars for the men and women of the department. I called the U.S. Attorney's Office and to get permission to use these funds. Obviously, we do not have this type of money in our budget, and it would be a hardship for the town, I believe, in the budget to request this type of equipment for that price. So I asked the U.S. Attorney, I got permission from the U.S. Attorney to use forfeiture funds, and that's actually drug money from druggies that have been confiscated over the years. So we thank them there.
There's a silver lining to every cloud.
So I got permission to use this money. I then assigned some officers within the department to do a study to make sure that they got the right, proper equipment for this investment and everything that we needed. We wanted to do it all at once, get what we needed, and do it right this one time. The members of the department did research for approximately 3 months, and they finally picked the rifles that they felt would be best for the use. This money that I'm using provides for ammunition, training ammunition, all the other items that go with the rifles, the scopes, everything that you can think of. And as I read the equipment they need, I find it amazing that what's out there. So with that in mind, I brought this to the town board, and I'm asking your approval for me to purchase these rifles. Also, each patrol car will have one of these rifles. Each emergency response officer will have a rifle, but it will be just a different make, because their uses will be a little bit different. But this will take this this money also will take care of all the training of the officers, which will be given before any rifles are issued to any of the patrol cars. So this is what made me really push to get rifles for our cars, because I think that as chief, I really owe it to the men and women of this department to provide them with this proper equipment. And I owe it to the community also, so that if we are called into a certain type of situation, that we have sufficient firepower to protect them and the officers involved. And this, again, is not at any taxpayer cost here in the town of Arundequoit. It all comes from the bad guys, and we thank them again for that.
Thank you, Chief. Does anyone want to add anything, ask?
No, but I do think it's critical that our police officers are better armed than the thugs on the street.
So hearing none, let us vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 9A, 2013-6, authorizing 2013 tax levies resulting from right-of-way town code violations.
Motion? Moved. Thank you. And I'll second it.
Whereas the Department of Public Works uses certain equipment to perform services for the town and to maintain town property, and from time to time such equipment needs to be replaced. And whereas each piece of equipment listed on the attached addendum, A, the equipment, is several years old and no longer used by the town.
You're doing the wrong one,
You're doing the one, yeah, Patrick.
I'm sorry.
This one's the tax levies for right-of-way.
Thank you. Whereas the town of Arundequoit served notice upon the owners of the properties listed in the attached spreadsheet for violations of the town code within the town right-of-way, and whereas the owners failed to comply with the duly issued order within the time provided, and whereas if a property owner fails to correct a violation, then the town code authorizes the town to have the work performed and be reimbursed by assessing and levying the expenses for such work against the property. And now therefore be it resolved that the town of Arundecoit authorizes and orders that the expenses for the work performed by the town to correct town code violations as set forth in the attached spreadsheet and total approximately $830 be assessed and levied against said properties as listed in the spreadsheet and collected in the same manner and same time as other assessments and tax levies of the town. And be it further resolved that the town supervisor is hereby authorized to adjust the foregoing assessment and levy based upon additional expenses incurred by the town, as well as fees that are paid to the town prior to the cutoff date of September 30th, 2013. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption.
Thank you. Just so you all know that September 30th is our deadline to input that in the town clerk's office before it goes to the county by October 15th. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, let us vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 9A, 2013-7, declaring the Department of Public Works equipment surplus.
So moved. And I'll second it.
I had it, the chief was talking about purchasing equipment, and I had it in my mind that I was giving away equipment, or not giving it away, but surplusing equipment right after his, so sorry I got off track there. Whereas the Department of Public Works uses certain equipment to perform services for the town and to maintain town property, and from time to time, such equipment needs to be replaced. And whereas each piece of equipment listed on the attached addendum A, the equipment is several years old and no longer used by the town. And whereas the town intends to auction the equipment at the next municipal equipment auction to occur in October 2013 in Palmyra, New York, now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby declares said equipment, serial number set forth in addendum A, as surplus, and authorizes the town supervisor to execute and deliver such documentation as necessary to auction said equipment at the next appropriate municipal equipment auction. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption.
Thank you. Any questions to ask?
Boy, 35 PSI pressure washer, they'll take your skin off, no problem, huh?
It will.
Hearing no other discussion, let us vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 9A, 2013-8, authorizing the supervisor to sign a lease with AT&T Wireless.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you.
I'm down to my last resolution here, so I think I've got it right. Whereas the town of Arundecoit owns a cell tower located at 1280 Titus Avenue that has been leased to cell phone providers in the past, and whereas Nextel recently canceled its lease with the town of Arundecoit and removed all of its equipment, and whereas AT&T Wireless has contacted the town of Arundecoit for the purpose of leasing space on an antenna facility on an existing guide cell tower at an annual fee of $24,000 with a rent escalation of 2% each year for a period of 5 years with 4 5-year renewal terms at substantially the same space as Nextel. Whereas the New York State DEC at 6 NYCRR subsection 617.5 C26 has identified license, lease, and permit renewals or transfer of ownership thereof where there will be no material change in permit conditions or permitted activities as a Type 2 action not requiring review under seeker, and therefore the lease with AT&T Wireless is a Type 2 action. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby authorizes the town supervisor to sign a lease agreement with AT&T Wireless for the lease of space for an antenna facility on the existing guide tower owned by the town of Arundecoit, subject to final negotiation and approval of the lease by the attorney for the town. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption.
As you can see from the document, we've identified this also as a Type 2 action. Basically, it's substituting in one carrier on the space that was occupied by the other. We have reviewed the lease agreement. It's not so much the financial terms, but other terms we want to have more discussion with AT&T about and get those terms, we think, in a position that's more favorable to the town.
Okay. And I think, they plan on occupancy about December 1st, so we have time. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, let us vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 9A, 2013-9, approving the Stepping Stones 5K Run, 1 Mile Walk Family Celebration for Autism.
I'll move it. Second, please.
That'd be
Thank you. Paul.
Whereas the town clerk's office received an application from Stepping Stones Learning Center to conduct their annual 5K Run, 1 Mile Walk Family Celebration for Autism, proof of current insurance, which expires April 24th, 2014, has been received and approved. That the town board approves the application for Stepping Stones Learning Center to conduct this annual 5K Run, 1 Mile Walk Family Celebration for Autism on Saturday, September 28th, 2013, beginning at 9:30 a.m., beginning and ending at Stepping Stones Learning Center, 41 Colebrook Drive, Rochester, New York. The resolution takes effect immediately upon approval, and this we have done in the past.
It was fun last year.
Yeah, this is a great place. I know we've talked about Stepping Stones, but when they come before the board, I always think it's a great time to highlight the wonderful work they do in there. It's all-inclusive pre-school, and they're actually one of the larger employers in the town of Arundecoit. They employ quite a few people, and they're in the middle of a capital campaign because they're hopefully moving from one facility to another. So if anybody would like to check them out, I know they'd love your support.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, let us vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 9A, 2013-10, approving the Bishop Kearney Homecoming Parade.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you.
Whereas the town clerk's office received an application from Bishop Kearney High School to conduct their homecoming parade, proof of current insurance, which expires on June 15, 2014, has been received and approved. The town board approves the license to conduct the Bishop Kearney High School homecoming parade on Friday, October 4th, 2013, from 5:15 p.m. till 6 p.m. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption, and this event has also been done in the past.
Thank you. Any questions to
Paul's
ask?
alma mater.
Yeah. Hearing none, let us vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Item 9A, 2013-11, adopting a bond resolution subject to permissive referendum.
Moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you.
What the board has before it is a draft bond resolution for the library project. It has been prepared by the Oric law firm and put in the form that the town typically uses. Since the town board on August 20th had finished the seeker review process, you can now go forward and act on the bond resolution. The bond resolution is drafted, is subject to a permissive referendum pursuant to the requirements of Article 7 of the town law. It also supersedes the February 19th resolution and the April 23rd vote. Since the proposed resolution is not being sent to the voters directly, but instead subject to a permissive referendum, it needs to be approved by a larger majority of the board, which would be 4 votes out of the 5. If the board had a different view of it, you could refer this to a special election, which would be set not less than 60 nor more than 75 days when you adopt that resolution. For that vote, you only need 3 out of 5 members. If you adopt the resolution as drafted for a permissive referendum, what that means then is parties opposing the resolution would have 30 days to gather and file a petition challenging the resolution, calling for a vote. Based upon the Board of Election website, there was 19,353 people who voted for governor in the last election. You would need 5% of those people to sign a signature, so it would be approximately 967 signatures on the petition. The resolution, when adopted, we must publish notice of it, and the form of the notice has been prepared by the Oric law firm and is attached, and it also has to be posted. If there is no petition or an insufficient petition filed, then the resolution will become final after 30 days.
When we decided to take it to a vote, we wanted to give the voters an opportunity because we think that is the democratic way, and we still contend that our residents have spoken. When you sit in my seat, you hear much more from residents about what they want in town, and it's been a very clearly definitive factor when I'm out in the community and when the rest of us are out there, that it is time for us to move away from our two branches to a new facility. So unless someone else has something else to say?
Well, I just have a couple of things. You want to go?
Oh, no, you go ahead. You
I
go
just
ahead.
want to address a couple of things from public input, which I don't usually try and do, but, it gets difficult to spend so much time trying to answer false allegations. But when we undertook this, when the library board undertook this project of wanting to consolidate the library, the buildings would need so much care, they would be outrageously expensive to continue to maintain. Madam Supervisor, and we as the board decided it would be very important to put that to a public vote, even though at that time, we could have also done a permissive referendum. It wasn't required that we go to a public vote. That was a choice of the board to give the people the right to voice their choice, which they clearly did. As far as what happened with the lawsuit, we could have gone to court to appeal and defend our position, and we had a lot of counsel that said we very well could have prevailed. But that would have put this entire project on hold in the appeal process for God only knows how long. So instead of putting the people in the town through that kind of torture, we decided to do what we have undertaken in this process, which is to redo this and at this point switch back to a permissive referendum since a public referendum was already held and the people spoke. Whether you say that's legal, if you want to argue about the technicalities of that, it wouldn't change the vote. The people in this town were clearly informed of the facts, and the facts have not changed. There is no reason, in my opinion, to put the town through another taxpayer-funded public referendum that cannot be held during the general election because of time. So it would have to, by law, be a separate election, taxpayer-funded, for no good reason.
John, were you going to say
No,
something?
go ahead.
I just wanted to have Mr. Primo address why we cannot have it on November 5th.
Sure.
Ballot.
There's been, I think, some communications, and in fact, I think someone had contacted the Board of Elections, and they had said, well, as long as we have a proposition 37 or 36 days before the election, we can put it on the ballot. But what the Board of Election is referring to is Election Law Section 4-1081B, which states that a proposition or referendum of a county, city, town, village, or special district must be submitted to the Board of Elections at least 36 days prior to the election if the election is to be run by the Board of Elections. It is a deadline for submittal to the Board of Elections and does not establish the procedures a town must follow. Local Finance Law, Section 35, provides that the bond resolution, such as the library bond resolution, is subject to a permissive referendum pursuant to Article 7 of the town law. Therefore, the timing of a referendum is governed by Article 7 of the town law. Town Law, Section 91, provides that if a proper petition challenging the resolution subject to a permissive referendum is filed not less than 60 nor more than 75 days before a biennial election, remember that time frame, 60, 75, before the biennial election, then the matter is to be submitted to the voters at such election. However, Section 91 goes on to state, if a petition be so filed at any other time, a proposition for the approval of such bond resolution shall be submitted at a special election to be held not less than 60 days nor more than 75 days after the filing of such petition. So there's a very limited window if it's going to be on that November 5th ballot or the first ballot, the biennial ballot. Town Law, Section 94, provides that town board may refer a matter otherwise subject to permissive referendum to the approval of electors and, quote, "the proceedings thereon shall be the same as if such petition had been filed in accord with the provisions of this chapter." Therefore, the same timelines for a petition also apply to referral by the town board. Since there are less than 60 days to the biennial election November 5th, the town board cannot refer the matter for a vote at that election. The town board can either adopt the bond resolution subject to a permissive referendum or set a date for a special election not less than 60 nor more than 75 days after a resolution itself. The fact that the Board of Election could prepare a ballot is irrelevant to the issue of whether the town has complied with the requirements of Town Law Article 7, and compliance with Town Law Article 7 is required for a bond resolution. Now, this analysis has been based upon review and discussions with the town's bond counsel, and he concurs with it.
Thank you, and I appreciate you addressing this because it was one of the questions that I had sent to you, and I appreciate your response.
Well, for one thing that wasn't mentioned this evening, real quick, and then I'll get on to what the library barbecue. I was going to talk about it after, but it was a very successful event down at Camp Eastman on the 24th of August. A lot of volunteers. I give a lot of credit to the library board and a lot of people that were there. A lot of people worked there. And one note I want to just pass along that it was very successful. I think between 800 and 900 people. It was the first one. They kept their word. They're going to have fundraising for the new library. Number two, these are the same folks that are running your libraries now. And the point I want to make is that everyone should know you're in good hands. I think you're in real good hands with these people. They work extremely hard, and that just showed you how hard they work, and the decisions they make are the right decisions. And just by the barbecue, and these are the people that are doing your library and working on your library and trying to make this library a reality, you're in good hands.
With the Friends, and by the way, all volunteer.
A lot of volunteers there. Okay, I got a couple things to talk about. I'm in 100% favor of a permissive referendum. I want to get the cards out on the table, the process that I see. The people that spoke at this podium that want to vote, let's face it, they're against the library. They don't want a library. They're dead set against the library. If you saw the antics the day of the election, what went on with these gentlemen driving back and forth to the polling places, taking pictures, talking to people, saying things, catching people as they're coming in. It was a real joke. So people who want another vote are dead set against this library. They want another shot at this thing to try to make this thing turn the other way and have people vote against the library. That's number one. Number two, when we talk about misleading, things like that, I look at it, this election, this vote was in three parts. People talked about the bonding, which we all know with the forums was a big issue. You know, you're going to give permission to the town to spend $13 million. That was a big issue. Consolidation was number two. And you could talk to anybody with the forums and anything like that. That was one of the biggest issues. And I believe the library board had approved to people why they think that that's the best route to go, consolidation. And then thirdly, obviously, was the location, which again, I talked about it last month. Larry talked about it. Larry was involved from day one. Not for 1 minute did I think that that spot right there was going to be at any problem to build a library. And to go on and to have another vote, I think is ridiculous. I think the people spoke. I think they were very well informed on what was going on. And you know, not once has any of these people come to the podium and just thank the library board and the people that were involved in all those forums, how hard they worked, how much information was out there for people. It's uncanny. But obviously, that's not in the cards for these people. And let's face it, I don't think we would have been in a lawsuit to begin with if some individuals didn't bankroll this thing to begin with. We wouldn't even be in a lawsuit. So I'm 100% in favor of permissive referendum. I think anybody out there should agree with that. We don't need another vote. Let's move on. We can get those RFPs out as soon as we can and get this thing designed and built. We're about 4 to 5 months behind the process that we thought. And we can make it up, and we can really get this thing moving and get it going. That's my 2 cents.
I don't have much to add. All my fellow board members really said it very well. I think this is a very exciting time for Arundecoit. I really do. I've been here my whole life. I got my first library card at the McGraw Library. And I just think this is a really exciting time. I support this moving forward. So thank you.
And it's true, we need to thank the Library Board of Trustees, the Friends of the Library, all those that have worked so hard for the barbecue and books, barbecue and blues for books, pardon me, in showing this community that a library is an important asset to this community. We have worked hard with the finances of this town. We are continuing to work at those, so it will have a minimal tax implication as we work through the infrastructure of this town. As we, my department heads and Annie can attest to how grueling a budget is when you look at our library branches. This, and I don't mean this in a negative way, and I don't want the library staff to feel that way, but it's just duplication of everything. And as we move down the road, those duplications of services are going to become more and more expensive as we are able to provide very few supplies if the budget is being eaten up in other matters that are not significant to library users. It is time that we moved on. We need to upgrade the town of Arundecoit. It is time for change. We are no longer in the 80s. It is time for us to be the diamond of a suburb that we are, instead of hearing about what it is in the other towns. This is Arundecoit. There is no other town like Arundecoit, and we deserve to have the finest of a library and other assets that we possibly can afford, and we can afford this at this time.
That's right.
I guess I'd like to say something also. As a previous library board member, I have been involved in processes and procedures for many years. And one of my, quests was to truly be able to vet, ask questions of process, procedure, and legalities. And it was pretty torturous at times because I want to give equal fairness to all parties. And I do believe that responses that I initially gotten in terms of seeker and such, I did question. And there are areas that I believe of seeker that could be mitigated at a later time in relationship to parking. And but I do feel that the process was as full as we can evaluate it to be. So I do feel comfortable with that. I also feel comfortable that the questions I asked Mr. Primo from last week's workshop were answered, and I do feel that those law-abiding areas were answered to me. So I do feel that the people with 64.23% had vetted themselves in the yes, and 35% had vetted themselves as a no. I do believe in progress for Arundecoit. That's what I ran for, and I do believe the fact that we need to move forward. So I am in support. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anything else to add?
No, ma'am, not for me.
Okay, hearing none, let us vote. All those in favor signify, I think maybe we'll do a voice vote. Roll call, please.
Roll call vote. Councilwoman Esley?
Absolutely, yes.
Councilman Marosco?
Aye.
Councilman Perdicone?
Yes.
Councilwoman Scrobach?
Yes.
And Supervisor Drizio.
Positively, with all my heart and head, yes. And I think that brings us to the end of our agenda, unless someone else has something for the good of the organization. Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second. All those in favor signify heartily aye. Aye. And we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Be sure you shut down your computers, please.
Already done.
Thank you.